It's up to the stage.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, we've got, I think, what is going to be a very informative panel discussion with 3 customers. We're going to do it in the form of a fact or fiction method. So I'm going to throw out a provocative statement and ask each of the panelists to declare it as either fact or fiction. And you'll see we've got paddles here to make that easy, and everybody will be able to see whether they think it's fact or fiction, and then explain their answer. So let me invite the panelists up here. Do we have the panelists' names here? There we go. I guess we don't. All right, come on up. Ken? Nice to meet you. I'll have everybody introduce themselves when they're up here. Sheila? Nice to see you. Dale, good to see you. Have a seat. Dale, we're going to put you here. So I think the first thing we ought to do is have each of you sort of introduce yourselves and your organizations, what you're doing with Serena. So Ken, how about we start with you?
Okay, my name is Ken Vane. I'm from Navy Federal, the largest credit union in the world, we always like to say.
In the world, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
With $40 billion worth of assets and 3.5 million members. And what I do is configuration management, and I use Dimensions CM. But we also are working with service management, and we need to keep growing in that direction.
All right.
For this year.
3.5 million members.
Yeah.
How many transactions a day does that total out to?
Lots.
Lots.
And it all centers around payday.
Yes, I'll bet it does.
Because we, of course, support the DoD. That's why it's called Navy Federal Credit Union.
Yeah.
We support all DoD.
Right, and I think with the credit union especially, it's very payday oriented.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, great to have you. How many exchanges have you been to?
2.
2, all right. Sheila, tell us a little bit about your organization and what you do there.
I'm Sheila Stevens. Our organization does multiple things, mainly based on insurance and partnering with mortgage companies.
Mm-hmm.
To our department, we pay the taxes for your loans as you buy houses. So we do a lot of software development. We use Dimensions CM.
Mm-hmm.
We are currently getting trained to use SBM.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really excited about that, to
Great.
kind of close the beginning and the end of our process.
Excellent. Well, and Dale, this is your second time on stage here this morning.
Yeah, so you already heard a little bit about us, but I'm with Care First Blue Cross Blue Shield, and we are primarily Maryland-based. We also, we're about a $7 billion corporation. And then we also have the federal employee program as well. So we have a number, even some of our folks that are here on both sides of that, from our commercial side and that. And we've got about 1,000 people on our technical operation services that we support through a myriad of Serena products. In fact, you know, we have Serena splattered everywhere, of course, with ZMF, Dimensions, CM, and SBM as well. And we're as you heard before, we're going through with a sort of a full-blown implementation of an entire SDLC using SBM and leveraging a lot of the things you guys have seen here on the stage.
So a full-blown implementation of SDLC, 1,000 people in IT. How many are going to be touched by that implementation?
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're probably, I don't know, I'll look for nods out of here in the audience, but we probably average around 200 or 300 people that are, you know, centrally focused throughout the week, but we really do reach out to nearly, you know, 70% of those folks on a regular basis, and that's not even including our business
Right.
partners
That's
as
just
well.
on the IT
because
side.
we also do, with SBM, we've leveraged what we lovingly call a vetting system. So we allow our business folks to come in on those vetting systems.
A vetting system.
Yeah, so it's business prioritization and planning, and we put up custom workflows for them to do the front end planning before they get into the work mode.
Kind of requirements management, or let them weigh in on what they need.
Exactly.
Uh-huh. Well, that's smart. All right, so all three of you understand the rules. You've got a simple mechanism there for you. You want to test that out at all? Do you think, okay.
Okay, mine's working.
You're the indecisive one, Dale. Is that it?
So I told him all answers are yes today.
All right, so here is our first statement. Agile gets a lot of attention nowadays. And the statement is this: the bottleneck for getting major value from Agile is in release management, not in development management. Fact or fiction? The bottleneck for Agile is in release management, not in development management. Got a fiction over here from Ken. Got another fiction. Dale, you going to break a tie here?
Yes. No,
All right.
I gotta go fiction.
So all of you are saying it's fiction, then the bottleneck is still in development. Somebody, Ken, you want to give us some thoughts behind your answer?
Yes, we have agile development in our organization, and what we find is they're still not well schooled in handling the stories, and they really get rated all of the time with...
I'm sorry, they get what all the time?
They get rated.
Rated.
By new requirements from the user community all the time while they're in a particular sprint. So we find that there's just a lot of churn. So what they think is going to accomplish, they're going to accomplish in a 2-week sprint. They're going to accomplish, these various stories. They don't do that.
They don't do that.
It just
Does the
failed to
sprint
get
still
that
come
done.
out though in 2 weeks, or does it then end up taking longer? And
Well, no, we still declare, what happens, or at least what I've seen happen in the past, is they declare victory that the sprint is finished,
right.
even though it doesn't produce anything.
Yeah. Well,
Everybody else agree?
that's a populist response right there. Sheila, Dale, what, you want to add something on that?
We're new to the Agile development. We definitely have done iterative processing.
Yep.
And that's worked out great. So that made us lead toward Agile, and this is our first project, actually. We're in the middle of it. But we are already seeing exactly what you were saying, that as we're in development, it seems like the next sprint or the next sprint, we're reworking what we already did.
Yes.
So although we're trying to get a blend of requirements, development, and testing all together, it seems that the requirements seem to constantly change in there, which affects development.
You know, it brings to mind for me one of my favorite quotes of John Wooden, the legendary basketball coach, who said something to the effect of, "Move fast, but don't rush." And it sounds like maybe people are being forced into rushing and end up then not moving as fast as you want. Right. Yeah. Dale, what would you add?
Well, for us, we're sort of an old organization, so we've been around for a number of years, so we got a lot of people that are fixed in their area and really hard to budge out of there. So we literally, and even with our implementation, have to support everything: waterfall, iterative, agile, and prayer, whatever it is that they've got to do to get it out.
When all else fails, we're praying.
So, and quite frankly, it comes to that sometimes because of where folks have come from and the last minute, and I chuckled with that as well, the last minute, oh, we got it all done and the code was finished last night, let's get it through change control.
Yeah.
So we still face a lot of that that goes on, and it's all a learning curve, though, and it comes back to just really evangelizing that with the entire project team, not just the developers. I don't want to pick on them too much today, even though there's probably not that many here. So, the CM folks love to be able to spread the love around, if you will, and we should be able to put it where it belongs. BAs all the way down to development, and our testing folks as well. There's plenty of places to stop along the way.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to our next one. And this builds on the Agile, and maybe this is going to be even more controversial. Requirements management is an outdated concept in the age of Agile. Fact or fiction? Requirements management is outdated in the age of Agile. I had an idea where this one was going. Who wants to start?
I'll start again.
All right, Ken, go on.
It's better to go this way.
We'll go that way.
It's like a wave.
Yeah, requirements are essential for Agile. It's even more important. You've got to solidify your requirements. And that is one of our problems, is requirements are rather nebulous and non-testable and ill-defined. And, it's sort of like we want it to be magical. That is the requirement.
Right.
It's not magical enough yet.
Yeah.
So let's make it more magical. And that's what we get into. Is it magic enough?
Right.
I don't think we really have a problem with requirements as far as defining them, documenting them knowing at that moment that's what they want. But once they see, like the first sprint, once they start seeing things, look at the GUI and they're like, oh, well, really, that's not exactly what I wanted.
Right.
I wanted this. So I'm sure all organizations are the same. So those are the kind of things that then the IT team tends to say, okay, let's change the direction we're going in. That starts to affect the schedule. Or maybe it's
Right.
a lot more complicated than the requirements thought that it would be.
Right.
Those type of things.
Let me put in a quick plug for visual prototyping,
Right.
like with Prototype Composer. I think, as I said in the demo yesterday, there's no substitute for showing a user this is what it's going to look like, because for some reason, it's human nature. People can't relate to just reading on the page. It's going to do this and that. You show them, and then they can see it. Anyway, Dale.
Very true, and I think that's important. We actually do that, to add to that, in our own development. Of work we're doing with our workflows. So the guys will prototype it, we'll take a look at it, and before we get out of development, they'll
And that's a beautiful thing about SBM.
Yeah.
You can just show them out of Composer, here's what it's going to look like.
Yeah. So, for us, it's, again, interesting because we have such a culture mix of folks that are there in what we call corporate initiatives. We're very, very rigid around our requirements, and we do a pretty daggone good job of getting that everything through the system and getting it into the proper kind of review in SDLC. And then our day-to-day business, though, depends on who you go to. And sometimes you might get it on a napkin, sometimes you might get it, into the system the way it should be or in a document. But we're still working very, very diligently with the teams to try to standardize some of that.
All right. Let's turn our attention now more towards operations. And the statement is this: ITIL has as much impact on application development as it does on operations. Fact or fiction? ITIL has as much impact on... Oh, there's a fact. Oh, we got the green. We finally see the 3 greens. Look at this. Okay. Well, Ken, we'll start with you again.
Well, what we have found is service management, ITIL, is about outcomes.
Yeah.
And that really affects how app dev works and how operations works, because that has not been the focus until now. And outcomes can be sort of a buzzword, but if you really live that and really believe it, it really can be transformational for your organization.
Excellent. And that's come all the way back into... Absolutely. Let's applaud that. That's all the way back into app dev.
Right.
I mean, it's had a... Yeah, Jill.
I think at our company, we concentrate more formally on IDLE for our service.
Sure.
We use Heat. So, but for our software development, we do it more informally. We still use the practices that IDLE does, but we just don't do it as formally.
Okay.
Well, you guys have been preaching it all morning. If you don't have process first,
Right.
then you can't, it doesn't matter what tool you use or
Right.
what you're trying to do. So, and this is really the same thing. If you don't have everyone buying in and all working together collaboratively, that's ops and dev, everybody,
Right.
then it's going to be dysfunctional.
Right.
And so that's why, emphatically, I think that it's important.
Excellent. All right, here's our next one. Release management should be its own department, not reporting to apps or ops. Fact or fiction? Release management should not report to apps or ops. Fact
This
or
is more, do you believe that to be
Shouldn't hold
true?
that in a
Uh,
minute.
no,
See,
no,
that's what I
no
wanna do.
sideways
We're all
now.
gonna say the middle.
Green or red, not purple.
No, the middle.
We got a green over there. We got a fact over there. Sheila.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Now we got some controversy going. Dale.
Well,
You have to pick.
Oh, I love putting you
You
on
have
the
to
spot.
pick. No, you have to
all right, I'll go fact, I suppose.
All right, so we got two facts and a fiction. How about Sheila? You go first with the fiction.
I don't necessarily think that it should be a separate department.
Okay.
I personally think that it should be a collaboration with both teams, and that, like, personally, when I schedule meetings and we have releases, I make sure there's representatives from both teams and we work together, but it doesn't mean that I necessarily should be a separate department.
Okay.
Although that I am part of the application team, the operation team still needs to be aware and have input in the process.
Dale.
All right, so we're really trying to work on this with our organization actually right now, which is why I have to take the middle line, because it's hard to tell where it's going to land, right? So the bottom line is that a release manager, I think it's important that that person or group has a unique responsibility more to the organization than anything else, and like quality assurance is. So quality assurance and testing, by nature, if we're doing it correctly, should be segregated away so that we get an objective opinion about what's happening. I see it a lot as the same sort of thing in release management. However, I strongly agree with her in that it has to be a collaborative effort.
Right.
That it has to be dev and testing and the business and stakeholders all involved in orchestration of delivering our product.
Right.
Right? But that release manager is so important that if you don't have a maestro there,
Right.
then it's not going to happen correctly.
Right. Okay. Ken?
I really agree with what he said. The only thing I would add is by having it a separate organization focused on quality, just like SQA is, our software quality assurance is also focused on quality, and it's reporting to the business. That really gives the right emphasis and changes the focus to that service management model, which is what we're trying to get to. Too many times, there's a large amount of pressure that's placed on the organization to just get it released.
Okay. We're going to talk about automation now, and I'm going to ask you to compare what has greater savings. Automated deployment has greater savings than automated testing. Fact or fiction? Automating deployment has greater savings than automating testing. Fact or fiction? Okay, we got a fact, we got a fiction. Sheila?
No, I don't know.
Oh, another sideways here.
I manage both teams, actually.
Me too.
So it's really
the
hard.
divided loyalty. You want to
It's
explain
really
that a
hard
little
for me
bit?
to choose. We had an automated tool. We were new. We were just developing our application, so it became more of a hassle to keep it maintained. So we kind of went away from it. We're desperately wanting it back again. But as far as releases, automating releases, I can see would minimize introducing errors as in doing it manually, which we definitely see. So if I had to choose one, I would want to do release first and automate testing second.
Okay. Well, I think that aligns with your fellow panelists. Ken?
Well, first of all, I had a quality background before. I worked for an organization that had a quality issue, and I was the QA person. And they didn't have configuration management,
Right.
and yet we were doing testing.
Right.
So
Against what you didn't know.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like the cart before the horse.
Yes.
So for me, automated testing is actually never really works because of one reason. We are using a program to test programs.
Right.
If we could write perfect programs to begin with, why would we need to write a program to test programs?
Yeah.
Okay? So it's
That's very philosophical.
engineering-wise, it makes
pretty deep.
no sense. And I'm also a big proponent of automated deployments because gets all the manual processes out of it.
Right.
Now we understand exactly procedurally what we need to do to be successful, and we can repeat it tomorrow, just like we snap baselines so that we can go back to the previous version of our code. We snap a baseline of the scripting necessary to deploy so that we can get back to that same condition whenever we need to.
Excellent. Dale?
All right, so I said fiction because I think, and I'm more with you, and it's interesting the dynamic here because we're all QA people as well. And I spent the majority of my career leading QA teams and then doing CM secondary, and now I've shifted that around. But I own both as well, where we're at. I have the TCOE, and then I also have change in config management. So I'm really tossed with this because I certainly have seen the advantage, of course, over the years of the money and huge savings you can do in test automation.
Yep.
And I'm a big proponent of that. I'm just saying neither should go away. You got to have build automation to support quality and speed. And in our environment scenario where we have multiple environments, in a typical life cycle of an application, we could have deployed 20 or 30 times. That's a lot of work for one guy on a keyboard to set in and then have to do it right every single time.
And it's repetitive.
So we've got a number of our automation, our ZMF side of the house is already automated in their build automation. We're working on it with dimensions and then talking right now back and forth with trying to finish it off with SBM, telling them what to do as we go through the workflow. So I'm excited, of course, about that because it's about to come to fruition, but we're not quite there. So for me, certainly, I think there's huge value in both. The quality is certainly there, and the speed is there. Last note about that, just even recently was drug into a lot of the test automation. We use QTP to do our automation with, and my team ended up going out and doing production support with in what we call automation robots, right? So saving 20 or 30 people working on a keyboard for 2 days, and they get it done between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. at night with a couple of instances of QTP. That's huge.
That's huge.
So just the advantages of that, I think, is great. And in the same regard, so is build management, because as soon as we start getting to a point where we're able to hit a button and deploy, that's when we'll all be happy, I think.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Open source. Proliferation of open source tools are making application development much more chaotic. Open source tools are making app dev much more chaotic. Fact or fiction? I've got a fiction.
What do you like?
Oh, is that your lifeline?
That's my lifeline. Down there.
Phone a friend.
All right, we got another 3 fictions. All right, I guess we have some open source fans here. Who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Yeah.
I said fiction because, again, it's the process first. So if it doesn't matter what tool you're using, as long as you're following best practice guidelines with that tool. And as much as I'm a proponent for, I would love, in fact, I'd love to take over the world, and we talk about that all the time at CareFirst. We're trying to take on all of our customers. We're still migrating people onto ZMF from all the old antiquated stuff that we support. In the same regard, in fact, Dave right here is doing a migration of CVS over to Dimensions, and we're sunsetting it. So yeah, we want to move that way to get people standardized and done, but in the same regard, if companies are fixed in using open source tools, hey, they're open source. If they're working well for them, why should we get in the way of that?
Have you brought open source tools into your shop?
Well, I haven't, but all the development teams have.
Yeah, so they have come into your shop.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Sheila?
I can just say ditto to what he said.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely, it's the process that drives it. And as long as people follow the process, all the roles from beginning to end. At our company, we get audited because we partner with insurance companies and mortgage companies. So there's standards we have to meet and we have to pass every year, sometimes twice a year. So in that case, it really, like you said, it doesn't matter what tool you use. You just have to make sure that it has everything you need to be able to pass an audit. I spoke at a users group, and one of the things I said was, audits are really easy. And people were like, audits are easy?
Yeah.
And it's like, when you have Dimensions, everything is there.
That's great.
If everybody followed the process from beginning to end, everything is there.
That would be a great fact or fiction statement. Audits are really easy. Fact or fiction? Ken?
I would say that once again, it's all about outcomes, right? And some open source products are really good. In fact, anyone who's got Dimensions has Apache underneath their Tomcat, right? That's open source. So we're all using it. I've now become a big fan of the BERT framework because it's a reporting tool. Business.
Oh, I've heard of that. Okay.
BERT is becoming mature now as an open source capability. So now what BERT does is allows you to, just like you used to do ODBC and OLADB connections and using SQL to do a report, BERT allows you to now interface to web services.
Right.
And get those same reports out. So as we move to a web services-based architecture, which of course Serena has obviously done, these kinds of tools are going to make our lives all easier. So I like the competition. I like to keep it clean and give the proprietary solutions a run for their money, and we all benefit as consumers that way.
All right, here's one that is short and simple, and I think I know how it's going to turn out. The mainframe is dead. There we go. Yeah, we're waving up there. Okay. And I admit to shamelessly giving you guys an opportunity to tell us how the mainframe is vital and keeping your costs down and going to be with us for the next 50 years. So go on, Ken. You go first.
The mainframe is in no way dead.
Yes, okay.
It is just another platform that, like as was explained before, actually has a mature control system already built in. It is indestructible. It is robust. It is powerful, and it's a server platform. So use it when it makes sense.
Who else rises to the defense of mainframe here?
I just think it's always going to be around.
Yeah.
I know at our company, at one of our sites, we use it extensively, and we said for 10 years, we're going to get off the mainframe. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
There's just some applications that run better on the mainframe.
Just run better. And when you're running high volumes, as all three of you are, that counts. That matters.
Yeah, the difficult thing is getting middle, senior, upper management to understand that it's really still alive. And it's really going to continue to be there. So what starts to happen is the focus starts to go down on it because, well, we're moving everything off there. We're going distributed. That's just the way of the future. That's fine, and great. Serena's got them both covered, and we've got them covered in the way that we support them. But I absolutely agree. I mean, there's always going to be a need for the dinosaur, whatever color he is, whether he's blue.
Well, as Kevin Parker showed, that it has evolved into a Twitter bird now.
Right.
Exactly.
Getting dev and ops to work together is a piece of cake. Fact or fiction? Dev and ops working together is a piece
fact.
of cake.
If you make it happen.
All right, okay. Well, Sheila, let's have you go first then.
I don't know that it's easy.
Yeah.
But the sentence, I don't think, is fiction. I think that the key is making sure you get everybody play well together.
Right. And what's a tip or a trick to do that?
Chocolate.
That helps with many things in life, I think.
It works with me.
Dale?
Just reminds me, like 10 years ago, there was this lady that ran change control, and you couldn't get an answer from her. You couldn't get her. I mean, she literally would not talk to you unless you brought her a candy bar, and it was just comical. The whole organization knew it, and they know that you had to take a piece of candy to her.
I'm just thinking, I don't think I've ever seen that in Dilbert, and I wonder why.
Well, certainly it's a challenge. We kind of kid around about it, but she's absolutely right. We've got to get everybody to work together. The biggest thing is that development team, and I've been a developer, so I feel their pain from that vantage point when I go and try to tell them that, hey, we really need you to do these 5 steps. Can you at least log in and say that you passed this or moved this and do that kind of thing? And it's like pulling teeth sometimes for them to do that because they're focused on doing development. And so the more and more and more that we can, to me, the solution to that is automating that and getting the tool connectivity that we're doing. So for example, and we've seen this in some of the breakouts, if Dimensions is doing something and I'm a developer working in Dimensions,
Yep.
it should go tell SBM that I'm done.
Right.
Right? If I'm in Quality Center, it should go tell them when my test suite is complete.
Right.
Right? I shouldn't have to log into SBM and do some other process. I should make it look seamless. So I think that falls on all of us to make that start to happen, to make development team lives a lot simpler.
Good stuff. Ken?
Yeah.
Sometimes I think that operations thinks they're the Oracle of Delphi. Sorry, ops. So I'll tell you one little story, and believe me, app dev has its issues too, and we have to work on those as well. For example, app dev has this tendency of embedding into their programs things that should actually be data stores that should be changeable as configuration items, not things that are statically defined inside their
Right. So you don't have to redeploy to change them.
Right. So that makes it more cumbersome. We have far more releases. One application we discovered that of the 8 releases we had done this year, 4 were just simply to change an XML file with a different value.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make sense.
Why isn't that a config parameter?
Right, exactly. Yeah. So that needs to be discussed, and we need to be more sophisticated about that. But our Dimensions CM tool is sitting on a Windows box, and the back end is sitting on an Oracle database. We had an outage for 2 hours and 20 minutes because a volume had run out of space in production. And the attitude was just put in a change ticket to ask for more space. That is not helping me with my outcomes.
No.
That is not service management. That is not meeting SLAs.
Yes.
okay? And yet that continues to happen, and no one got talked about for that.
Yeah.
So it's, like I say, Oracle of Delphi.
Yeah. Okay, we're down to our last two.
Yay.
Building and maintaining application deployment scripts adds to the release backlog. Building deployment scripts adds to the release backlog. Fact or fiction? This one's maybe a little more obscure.
Ready?
Got a fiction here. Okay, another fiction.
Yeah.
All right, 3 fictions. Who wants to explain why?
I think it's a necessity.
Yeah.
There are certain things you have to do through a script. They have to be written. I don't necessarily think that it adds to the backlog. Like I said, it's just one of the things that
Need
has
to take
to be
into account
done.
in the project plan.
Right. You know it up front. You can have milestones. So I just don't agree with the sentence.
How much effort goes into building those scripts? I mean, is that something that could be shortened?
We don't have a problem with it taking a lot of time to do that. And we use the scripts as we're going into each of our environments. So we deploy the same way as we do to test as we do to production. So.
Okay, Ken.
Well, they should be checked in, and they should be a part of the baseline.
Yeah.
And the complaint has been in the past is, well, I can't write a generic script that works in all environments correctly. But that's what we've requested of app dev to do. We snap baselines that are generic for all environments for app dev. We should expect the same thing for deployment scripts. So we're not there yet, but that's certainly where we need to be.
Okay, Dale?
All right, so, well, just to add to that point, and it's kind of off on a tangent, but we really went out on a limb and we put it into SBM. So we're, the next release that we have coming out is the genesis of that, of automating that with us in the work that's coming through the system. So at our component level in our system, we're allowing development teams to put in their dynamic scripts right there on screen with the variances between environments, everything else. They can actually call out what environment it's applicable to and that kind of thing while they're doing it right there. So whether it's a developer or some other skilled person that's actually doing the script, doesn't matter. What we want to do is we want to capture it in the system so that eventually, when we get to the end, now we can foster true automation and build automation.
I see.
So at that point, then we can talk to Dimensions or talk to ZMF and actually push the information along. Because there's still human stuff that goes on no matter what you do, typically. So especially when it comes to some of the configuration or file moves that we want to do.
Good, excellent. All right, here's our last one. If you have requirements, SCCM, and testing tools, you're doing ALM. Fact or fiction? Well, that didn't take long. So, explain yourselves. Who wants to go first?
All right.
All right.
Okay. Shameless plug for SBM, right?
All right, there we go.
Okay. So that's all I have to say about that. You have to have, what's the term you guys were using? You have to have the glue in the middle to do that. We clearly see that as well. It's the super glue that holds it all together to get us through there. It's not meant to do the things the other tools do, but if you don't have that, you don't have the axle on the car, the wheel's going to go everywhere.
Yeah. Jill.
I believe in ALM. We do SDLC very well.
Right.
Like I said, we pass audits, SAS 70. Ernest & Young are our friends. Which is why we're getting trained now for SBM. We really need to close the beginning and the end of the process. And I think that's what ALM does. So I think it'll be very valuable. It will help us expand, have more insight into it from other people besides just IT. So so I believe in it.
Very sensible. Ken?
Yeah, I would just reiterate what they said. It's necessary. You need to take a life cycle approach. You need to understand why you're doing things and be mature about it. And that's what ALM is.
Excellent. This has been a lot of fun. I hope it's been helpful for all of you. Dale, thank you so much.
All right.
Sheila? Ken, thank you. Thanks so much. You can keep your paddles if you want.
No, that's okay.
All right. Thanks to Dale, Sheila, and Ken.